Beep, 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 beep. Welcome. Caught the EDI jest. Come on, you lot. How are you? Right, become a warrior teacher, buy me a coffee. Usual, right? I thought it was about time we had a chat. Right? Because I haven't done this for a while. Sometimes I feel like I'm just a bloody mouthpiece that reads crap out. I am just a mouthpiece that reads crap out. Right, listen. Do you know, I've been sat back for the last couple of days watching this unfolding nightmare that is the new guidance. The guidance for, school bloody guidance. And I just got up this morning and thought, is there ever at any point going to be someone that's going to make a declarative statement about this and actually really begin to bring this to an end? And I imagine that my only hope lies in effect with the Conservative Party at the moment, despite the fact that there's great work being done by the smaller parties, like Reform, etc., who are attempting to bring public scrutiny to bear upon this most tragic of circumstances for the young people who have been caught up in it. Unfortunately, they don't think that they've been caught up in it. It reminds me, I've said this before, I'll say it again, for those of you that are murdered, it reminds me of the story of the Gadarene swine, which has been somewhat enhanced by me. The pigs possessed of the demons, which Jesus threw into the pigs to take out the man, head towards the cliff and then throw themselves off. Right, now that's what we're seeing, except the problem is, the adults that should be saying to the children, stop, don't, no, end of story, aren't doing it. And the few people that do go, hang on a minute, don't like this, and diverge off to the left. So if you'd be watching the pigs, they're all heading towards the cliff. And then you'd see two or three of them go off to the side and you go, where are they going? As if they were the ones that wrong. These young people that have spoken up, that have exposed what's happened in classrooms, And the rest of them are still heading towards the damn cliff. I don't know how we stop it in any other way than the kind of thing that I want to propose to you today, because I think this is where we now are. First of all, I think we have to classify this in a very clear way so that Joe and Joanne public can get their head around it, and in a simplistic way. Not simplistic because they don't understand, because they would, but simplistic because, unlike some of us, they don't have all day to study this crap, which is so dense and complicated and ridiculously convoluted that for the average person it's very hard to understand exactly what the problems are. Where are you going to begin? Back in time? You're going to start with the nonsense in the eugenics movement in the 1890s and early 1900s? Or are you going to start with John Money? What about Kinsey? You're going to include him? How about the difference between equality and equity? You're going to start talking about that? What about the influence of things like, the LGBTQIA, which has been made up? And how do you explain forced teaming in 2 minutes? The simple fact of the matter is that we can't. That we're out there now as what the warrior teachers, and obviously lots of others of you, saying to people individually, have you considered? So I was trying to think about what we should do, and I've had this conversation with a few people before. I think that the first thing that government must do is to characterise this and actually classify it as a public health emergency. That's the first thing that they should do. There should be a declaration coming from whoever it may be. I can't imagine Rishi can't reach the 8th floor button in the elevator at the hotel. Sunak is going to be the person that does it. I just don't think he's going to do it. I think he would have done it. I mean, they're saying he's now very carefully considering the trans guidance. For what? Richie? For what? And I watched Gillian Keegan spouting on about the stuff they're doing for education, some of which is very good, but all which will be for naught unless we recognise that the trans problem is just one problem. That actually this is about critical social justice. It's about how we've been teaching people. It's about them making activists out of students and telling 6-year-olds they can be a boy or a girl. I don't know how you even get that stopped unless you do declare, what I think is the only way now to do this, a public health emergency. And that should come from the highest level, from government. And then the public health emergency should define what the public health emergency is. And the public health emergency is a creeping ideological framework of thought that has infiltrated every aspect of society. And then begin with the schools, because that's the place that will be of most concern to parents. And that's the place where our most shiny, bright, and possible miracle workers of the future exist, the children, right? I nearly did a Whitney then, didn't I? Children are our future. Off your pop, Whitney. Oh, she has. Right now. So, what do you do? Think about it in those terms. If I'm right, because I could be just, blathering cobblers. But if I'm right, and let's say we do declare this a public health emergency, what should be the next step for government? What should be the next step? And I would say that the next step should be everybody should get a leaflet. Everybody should get a leaflet. A big, scary leaflet. And that scary leaflet should detail the machinations of John Money and Kinsey, but in short, bulleted points with links to elsewhere. And not only should it do that, it should then explain how these thought processes, particularly those involved with queer theory, the Q, wish to break down the barriers between adult and children, and then also explain what the plus means in terms of non-binary and the asexual wibbling nonsense we're hearing about now. And then it should talk about the medical derangement, the mental derangement it causes and the medical damage it causes by including pictures of the unbelievable harm that have been done to people by these Frankenstein surgeries. That's what I think that we should do. At the same time, we should highlight to teachers that it may be that their students are being taught by activist teachers, and give the teachers, give the parents 2 or 3 questions to ask of the school, that the schools will then be honour bound to answer, because every parent in the country will have got the leaflet. Are they teaching the following? Have they embedded it across the curriculum? Is the PSHE age appropriate? Who's in control of all this? Do these teachers practice critical social justice? You can check their Facebook profile. There'll be a footprint somewhere, and then we get them out. Right? And that's what I would say. It won't be us that does it. It'll be the parents. The parents will call for it. This is going to happen anyway. What I've just mentioned is going to happen anyway. It's going to happen anyway because parents are already starting to come together. They're already starting to come together. We've got groups growing of parents in their hundreds who are not going to allow this to continue. This grievance-based nonsense, victim nonsense of the gender identity ideology, queer theory, critical race theory, and yes, extreme environmentalism crowd. We've got teachers practicing critical social justice in schools. We've got headmasters pushing critical social justice in schools. We've got them doing it in hospitals, universities, wherever it may be. So if you're not initiated, is there such a thing as an uninitiate? There should be an uninitiate. Are you an uninitiate? That should be the heading of the leaflet. Are you an uninitiate? If people are not aware of the religiosity of this, the absolute cult-like behaviour of these people, then we need to declare it as a public health emergency. In addition to that, we also need to look at a number of important factors, for example, in universities, and I would urge you to go and have a look at this if you've not. Go and have a look at something called the Haldane Principle. Haldene, the Haldane Principle. And how that relates to what's going on in universities, in that what essentially happened was they removed the Haldane Principle from the funding regulation for the research institutions in Britain. And that fundamentally changed how funding was done, which is why there's been a funding grab in universities. That needs to be looked at. So we'd have to look at that as well. And then we've got what is the degree of infection in the political parties. So the Greens, for example, are completely gone. The Liberals are completely gone. But how bad is it in Labour? What's going on there? Why is Starmer out of control of this? Why does he think one in 1,000 women have got a dick? Right? What's going on there? And also the Tories have then got to look at their own ranks and say, okay, you're done. So this is it's a public health issue, a severe threat to public health, and it should be treated as such. It should be treated as such. Now let's think about what will happen if we don't. Well, the first victims on the chopping block, of which there are already many, will be the children who are socially transitioned into a nightmare ideological cult. And that will happen either by the parents, or it will happen in the school without the parents' knowledge, or the parents will be able to not stop it. Well, we're going to need to provide those parents with help. For the parents that are intransigent, for the parents that insist that their child has a gender identity, then we are going to have that would raise a serious red flag. It will be a safeguarding issue. Safeguarding is the one lens we need to look through this at. So it will be a safeguarding issue. At that point, there will be an involvement of social services to ensure that the child is kept safe, even if it's from their own parent who is transhousen by proxying their kid. Tough stuff, isn't it? Right? So this guidance for schools should have all this in. All of it. Because if we don't, what happens next is this continued nonsense will continue to infect us. And we've already seen it in medicine and science. And let me tell you, that is what's going to happen is science is going to fall. And when it does, you won't be able to rely on the bridge you built, the nuclear power station you built. You won't be able to rely on the doctor in front of you. You won't be able to rely on the surgeon that's about to cut into you. Because you will have no way of knowing whether or not they are infected with this insane belief system. This parasite of critical social justice. I think that Rishi Sunak and the Rishi Sonar, he beeps a lot. Rishi Sunak, right? I think Rishi Sunak and currently the government need to be very, very strong in their commitment to ending this. And the only way that they can do that is to be declarative and take it on. So let's assume that they did. Let's assume that everything that I've just said to you happened. That there was a public health, declaration of public health, public danger to public health, and the leaflets went out. And then, boy, oh boy, are the nutters going to lose their shit, right? And then they'll take to the streets, and there's thousands upon thousands and thousands, and Richie will do what the government always does when that happens, is allow them to peacefully protest as one has done as a democracy, but someone will make a terrible mistake. And something will happen and somebody will get hurt. But it will bring it to a head. In any war, there are casualties. And I sadly think at this point in the game, that's going to be an inevitability. Really, it's awful. We've already got them. Children and young people. Lied to by the very people that they should be able to trust. Us. So, there we go. That's what I would suggest. Something will go wrong. Somebody will get hurt. Or, there will be a big kerfuffle. But so what? Do it. At this point, we've got nothing to lose. The Tories have certainly got nothing to lose because they're going to get their ass kicked in the next election. They're going to Labour in. So do it. Because if you do it, what we then have is a barometer. So let's say that they did what I'm suggesting that they do, which is to absolutely condemn the whole damn lot, right? And begin sacking and firing the civil service people and encouraging businesses to do so to end this public health problem. And then all of a sudden, you've got 2.5 million people on the street. Or even 30 million people on the street. It doesn't matter. Except in one way. If you've got 2.5 million people on the street, well, that's not a lot of people. Most people then don't give a toss. You've got 30 million, that's a different story. And if you've got 30 million in the street, the Tories might as well give it up now and give the country to Labour. Because it's going to take a lot longer for these 13 million people to realise that they've been caught in one of the largest, most complex, money-making, human-harming scams the world has ever seen. They're not ready to hear what needs to be said. And if they're not ready to hear what needs to be said, they're not going to listen. Because they don't do things logically. At which point then, the Tories have got no real option other than to go full out, cut the throat, make them bleed to death. This is what Labour will bring you. And detail the horrific damage that will be done to children. The horrific damage that will be done to our society. The horrific damage that will be done to our education institutions, to our NHS, the horrific damage that will be done to business by the critical social justice warriors and their belief system, which pushes the idea that you can be born in the wrong body, that puberty is a choice, that equity is the way to go, everything is racist, and that the world's going to end tomorrow and therefore we have to start eating dust. Grasp the nettle, Richie. Grasp the nettle and do it. Let's see what happens. Can't be any worse than the slow death we're currently in, can it? Pick a fight. Pick a fight. It can't be worse than the slow death we're currently suffering as a people. On the other hand, of course, I wouldn't listen to a word I say. I'm mad. Stuff's happening. We're seeing things happening, but they're going to both sides it, people. What you must do when it comes to trans children is you must get the permission of their parents. No, it's the parents that would give permission that are the problem. Not because they're bad people, but because they don't know. Because we haven't plastered all over billboards across the country the picture of damaged, mutilated and removed genitalia. We haven't shown them the pus-ridden scars. We haven't shown them the removed arm flesh. We haven't shown them the mutilated breasts and genitals of women, of young girls, or of boys. We haven't shown them. We haven't shown them the osteoporosis. We haven't shown them what will come next. We haven't shown them the higher suicide rate. We haven't shown them that they will die younger. We haven't shown them that dementia will mean that the nonsense made-up gender identity will be forgotten and they therefore live through a hell of every day waking up and not recognising who they are. Can we imagine how awful that's going to get in the next 25 years? We haven't told the population that for every person that does this brutal, ridiculous nonsense, that it will cost us millions over the years. Millions in their health charges because they had a cosmetic procedure. And we've not told them the most important thing of all, that this is iatrogenic to children. And the minute you go, yes, Bobby or Belinda, and give him his first dress to wear and a lipstick, it's game over for most. This is a public health issue. It should be treated as such. It is an emergency. And now we just need the government that will do what needs to be done. Because sadly, I can't see any other way of ending it. I'll see you later.